how did you find that? I hope you enjoyed a little bit of a walk around my old manor. As I explained earlier, I didn't quite do as much as I would have hoped, given the amount of time, money and effort I put into the costume. But you know what? You know when you get chatting with mates and then more mates turn up and then you go back to a pub and yeah, I just got a little bit carried away. I mean, I didn't get drunk. Certainly I had to go into the office the next day. But you know when you just get into a groove and you're just enjoying yourself, and by the time I realised what time it was, the parade had gone on for at least 3 stops. So I felt a little bit off. And because my friends weren't doing the whole parade anyway, I just kind of felt a little bit like I wanted to stay with them. But I hope you enjoyed my outfit. I certainly enjoyed wearing it and making it. I got a little bit silly, I'll be honest. But there were lots of people out there with different types of costumes, as you saw. So you know what, I stood out, but I wasn't on my own, and that's important. Now, there's a little bit of a project roundup. What have I learned? What did I learn about myself, about the process? I'll be honest, I kind of worked to how I have always worked, which is a bit of a shoddy answer, really. So what I'm going to do is maybe talk through what I've done and maybe sort of explain how you might be able to approach something like this if you're new to big projects. I mean, they can be very intimidating. So hopefully what I'm about to go through will give you some indications of where you would like to be and how you can approach these things. And if you stick around to the end, I will reveal how much I spent. When you start, I mean, I'm not going to talk about fabrics. I'm not going to talk about pattern picking or what area you go for. That I'm going to assume you've already worked all that out. Whether you have all the patterns and the fabric or not, that's neither here nor there. But I'm assuming that you've got your idea and you've got the deadline to make it in. What do you need to think about? What do you need to consider? Well, firstly and most importantly is, how do you work when you come to do something? Are you the type of person who loves to burn the midnight oil and the candle at both ends and, you know, make something in 10 days or less? Are you a slow and steady type? Do you like to plan things quite in advance, you know, have milestones and deadlines that you hit at a certain time each time? Or are you, a bit like me, plan ahead and then scrabble at the very last minute because you've left yourself just too much time and you end up procrastinating? All of these things are perfectly legitimate, and none of them are wrong. Just work out in your head, how do you work, because that will help you make the most out of this project. So just find out how you like to work. It does help, obviously, to know your deadline, and where possible, and I felt so much better for doing this, have the project completed. I had 2 weeks left to go after I finished my project, and I felt really good about that. It meant I could concentrate on a few other little final touches, but I'm not sitting there desperately sewing at the very last minute. So if you can, obviously it depends on your deadline, but try and give yourself a good couple of days at the very least at the end before your deadline to complete it all, because then you can wind down, you can just put it in the corner, let it rest, you can rest, and then when you come to put it on, you're really looking forward to it. So that really does help. Obviously there are times when that's just not possible. The other things I have to consider: plan for mistakes. Now, I don't want to be negative and say, oh, you're always going to make a mistake. You might not do, but I would really plan for that, because there's nothing more disheartening than sewing something, unpicking it 3 times, and still making the same mistake for the 4th time. But there are times when you are going to make a mistake. You might even make a really nasty mistake and you might have to recut something completely. That's a really big mistake. You can't factor for that, but give yourself some breathing space. Factor in rest time. I know it sounds silly, but a couple of days when you're not doing work on your project really just helps to reset your mind. Maybe if you're like every other creative on this planet, you've got 5 other projects in your mind bubbling away. Maybe you can have a couple of days to think about, well, what do I want to do now after this project? It's on days like this, I mean, you can't really see, but it's gorgeous out there. You know, some days you just want to go out and, as they say on the old interwebs, go out and touch grass. that's vitally important, just to get some fresh air, spend some time with people. Sewing can be quite, I don't want to say lonely and isolating, that's not what I mean, but it's a very insular hobby. It's not something you can really do very well socially. So sometimes, if you've been working on something for a week and a half and you've made really good progress, factor in a break somewhere. Just give yourself a day or two to go out and enjoy the weather, have fun with your friends and family, or even just go for a walk on your own. Just get some clean air into your brain, and then you can start at it again. And also factor in project burnout. I don't think I've ever worked on anything that has not at some point got me going, I'm just so tired of this, I'm sick of it, I'm done with it. And that's normally when I'm about to put the sleeves on. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So have that in the back of your mind. Practice, try and work out, if like what I made loads of different things. I made the smock, I made the kirtle, I made some lacing to lace up, I made the sleeves, I made the partlet, I made the French hood. There was a lot going on there. Now, if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have left the sleeves to the end, because I was knackered, I was done, and the sleeves were, it's not quite sleeveless, but it wasn't too far off, because they were just so fiddly that it wasn't something I was used to doing. It was a completely different way of making sleeves, and they took far longer than they should have done. And I did that right at the point of burnout, right at the point where I was like, I don't care anymore. I still haven't hemmed the damn thing. I haven't sourced my accessories yet. And I had about 3 weeks to go by that point. So you're going to have project burnout. Just try and factor that in. And maybe if you can plan what you're making, have a look and say, that looks actually quite complicated. If I do little bits in between, maybe by the time I hit the project burnout, I've actually got a majority of that difficult bit together. So all I need to do is something a little more simple, and it's all done. If you like writing lists, try and list down the things you need to make in what order, because sometimes you have to make things in a certain order. So with my kirtle, I've got a 1790s project coming up. I need to have the undergarments ready before I can even think about doing the main dress, because I need to have the right body shape. As you know, if you're wearing stays or if you're in corset, if you're not wearing anything, you need to have the underlayers ready to go in the right position. So you work out what order you might have to do some things in. If you're making lots of costumes, or you've made a couple of things and you've actually got the right underwear, perfect, you're halfway done. And then you can make things in slightly different orders, but work out the order of works, as I say, and then you can factor in stuff. So if you know you need to have a smock, a petticoat, and a corset cover, and a bust improver before you even think about the dress, that those 5 things need to be done, and in reasonably the same order. But doesn't mean you can't work at them at the same time, but those need to be done first before the dress happens. Don't underestimate the time needed to source accessories. Dramatic. My accessories were just a small little pair of earrings and some rings. I realised I needed them because I wanted to complete the look, and it's a tiny little detail that most people would never even paid any attention to, and nobody would have said, you know what, that costume looks amazing, but one thing's letting you down. Where are the accessories? No one's ever going to do that. But it's not just earrings and rings, it might be the hats. I mean, I've got to think about, again, for my 1790s project, I'm actually more concerned about what I'm going to wear on my head. I'm going to have my hair than anything else. So don't underestimate and sometimes these things take time to find. You might not know really what you want. You might have to do a bit of research to try and find something that you feel comfortable wearing, but will give the illusion of what you want. Especially if it's kind of jewellery that you don't normally wear. So I had to go and find some, and it was just by sheer chance that my local supermarket had something vaguely close to what I needed. But it might be not as easy as that. You might have to find something specific. Maybe it's for an evening out and you want to wear something a bit nicer. Now, the most important thing, how much does something like this cost? How long's a piece of string? No, seriously, it really depends on what you're making, whether you've got it in your stash, whether you like to, like me, my phone's going crazy. I'm quite happy to spend a bit of money and buy stuff straight from stores, either in person or online. You may be somebody who likes to thrift. So there is no real hard and fast rule, but it does help to have an idea of how much you think you want to spend. You will always go over budget. That is just inevitable. But if you're on a really tight budget, that will really help you to understand, well, I can only spend 100 quid on this outfit and I need to make blah, 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 blah. Well, where can you look? What can you do? Have you got stuff in your stash? Is there stuff that, you know, you can utilise? So you've got some old bed sheets. Well, actually, they'll make perfectly good petticoats and shifts. Undusted, you know, you could use part of that as lining for a corset. You've kind of got stuff there. So you can't budget, but it helps have an idea. Now, let me just make sure this total is correct. Yeah. Now this includes all the fabric. I had to buy an additional pattern for the French hood. I bought some pearls for the French hood, a couple of different types. I really didn't have much in the way of stash to use on this. I had some little embellishments I had in my stash, but they would not have made an iota of difference on this outcome. Could I have done this cheaper? I'm not sure I could really. The silk that I bought, as I explained in my earlier fabric haul, was 25 quid. I bought a metre of it. I've got a bit left over. I could have maybe used a poly silk and, you know, shaved off 12 quid. The silk taffeta was 45 quid. That's pounds, by the way. I don't know what, it's just how we say it over here, quid. 45 quid. I could have maybe have saved half of that if I bought something a little cheaper, but I really liked it. It really fit it. The colour was beautiful and it fitted in really well. So far I've really, out of the 12, basically I'm not going to be saving myself much money. Because maybe I could have saved a bit on the freshwater pearls as well. I spent about £40 odd on that. I don't think I would have saved much more than 100 quid. Because obviously what I didn't buy with that amount of money, I still would have needed to have bought something. And I don't think I would have been able to save myself much. And if I don't think I can save more than £100, I don't really feel like that's a saving for me personally. I know some people are probably sort of reeling back at horror going, what? You don't think you can save that? That's a small fortune. And the main fabric I actually got a good old deal for. I think I got my main fabric, yeah, I got that for £5 a metre, and I bought 5 metres of that stuff. And that was one of my main fabrics. So, you know, it can be quite expensive. £430.89 in total. Everything. Silk, cotton, thread. Fabric I didn't use. I'm still including that because I bought it specifically for the project, even though I didn't use it. Embellishments, the stuff for the French hood. It was a bit more than I think I was planning to spend, but I don't think it's out of the range when you think about how much fabric I used, how much fabric I had. So 27 metres. 27 metres in total, it's a lot of fabric. Fabric in the UK is expensive as well. Maybe I could have done a bit cheaper if I ordered online, but I would not have been able to have matched the colours as well as I did, and that's important. If you're matching colours, you really, unless you've got time to factor in for getting samples, and that's a I don't know, the devil's game. That I don't think I did too badly. My next 1790s project is pretty much going to be zero because it's almost all from my stash. There's going to be a couple of little bits and pieces I would need to buy, but it's nowhere near as expensive as that because I've got most of it in my stash. So the next project, you know, you could spend huge amounts of money on one project and no money on another project. That's just the way it goes. But I wanted to be honest, it's important to understand these things cost money. It's just a fact of life. And then it's up to you how you wish to factor that in. But there we go. That's it. Lettuce Knowles is going to be put up in the loft. Maybe next year she'll come out again. I don't know. But I had a lot of fun making it. And I thought it looked really good, really effective. People were very kind, and you know, I got questions, and people would say stuff and ask me stuff. So there we go. Hopefully you enjoyed all of the journey that I've done. And you know, if you've got any questions, please let me know. Leave questions down below. I'm trying my best to answer them. Please, you know, like, share, and subscribe. It really means a lot to me. Hi guys, to all my subscribers. Thank you. It's been lovely to see them and sort of the little bits of interaction that's been going on. But there we go. That's it. So what have I got on what we've got on my table next? Well, I've been mentioning a 1790s project. That's starting slowly but surely. That's not too intense, but there's some things I need to do. I'll have a separate video for that in the future. I make 9. You know, I still need to make some modern clothing. You know, I've spent an awful lot of time in the Tudor world. I want to come back to making stuff that I'm going to be able to wear day in, day out. So I've got New Zealand coming up, and I've got Japan on the way. If you don't know what I'm talking about, subscribe to my channel. There's a video dedicated to my Make 9 challenge, all of that. But I rambled on long enough. So thank you very much, guys. This has been a Crazy Cat Lady Productions. You've been watching an unoriginal idea. Until next time, guys, take care. Bye-bye.